I'm 77 years old, and I've never told this story publicly before. Not because I'm ashamed of it, because for years I didn't have the words. What happened to me in the summer of 1989 changed everything I believed about God, about life, about what's waiting for us on the other side. And I need to share it now, while I still can. Because if you're searching for proof that Jesus is real, I have it. I lived it. My name is Eugene, and this is the moment that shattered 50 years of doubt and made me certain that God is not just an idea. He's real, He speaks, and He saved my son's life. My wife Virginia and I got married in 1970. I was a history teacher for 41 years at the same high school in Ohio. Taught thousands of kids, graded millions of papers, or at least it felt that way. And for most of my life, I was what you might call a polite skeptic. I went to church because Virginia wanted to go. I bowed my head during prayers, but I wasn't really praying. I was just waiting for it to end so we could get to brunch. I believed in something, I suppose, some vague higher power. But Jesus, the resurrection, miracles, I thought those were just stories people told themselves to feel better about dying. I didn't say this out loud, of course. I nodded along. I sang the hymns. But in my heart, I had doubts that ran so deep I couldn't see the bottom of them. Virginia knew. She always knew. She'd look at me sometimes during the sermon, and I could see it in her eyes. She was praying for me, not with me, for me. That used to annoy me, honestly. I'd think, I'm a good man, I provide for my family, I don't cheat, don't steal, don't lie. What more does she want? But faith isn't about being good. I didn't understand that then. In 1989, I was 42 years old. Our son William was 23, just finished college, working his first real job in Chicago. Our daughter Linda was 19, still in school. Life was good, comfortable. We had the house nearly paid off. Retirement was visible on the horizon, and I was already planning the trips we'd take. Italy, Greece, all the places I taught about but never visited. Then on June 14th, 1989, the phone rang at 2 in the morning. Nothing good comes from a phone call at 2 in the morning. I knew it before I even picked up. Virginia was already sitting up in bed, her hand on my arm. I answered, and a voice I didn't recognize said, "Mr. Thornton, this is Cook County Hospital in Chicago. Your son William has been in an accident. You need to come now." That drive from Ohio to Chicago was the longest 5 hours of my life. Virginia prayed out loud the whole way. I just gripped the steering wheel and stared at the road. I didn't pray. I didn't know how. Not really. Every mile felt like 10. Every red light felt like an hour. And the whole time this voice in my head kept saying, what if he's already gone? What if we don't make it in time? When we got to the hospital, a doctor met us in the hallway. Young guy, couldn't have been more than 30. He had this look on his face, this exhausted sadness that told me everything before he said a word. William had been hit by a drunk driver, head-on collision. He was in surgery, but the damage was severe, traumatic brain injury, internal bleeding. The doctor said the next 24 hours would tell us everything. He said to prepare ourselves. That's the phrase he used, prepare yourselves. Virginia collapsed into a chair. I stood there frozen. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My son, my boy, the kid I taught to ride a bike, who used to fall asleep on my chest watching baseball games, who called me every Sunday just to talk about nothing. He was dying in a room somewhere in that hospital, and there was nothing I could do. We waited. Hours turned into a day, then 2 days. William was in a coma. The doctors kept using words like swelling and pressure and unlikely. They stopped saying he would recover. They started saying if he recovers. Virginia barely ate. She just sat in that waiting room chair, rosary in her hands, lips moving silently. I paced. I drank bad coffee. I stared at the clock on the wall and watched the minutes crawl by like they were mocking me. On the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. Virginia had finally fallen asleep in the waiting room, curled up under my jacket. I walked outside. It was maybe 3 in the morning. The parking lot was empty, orange streetlights buzzing overhead, And I just stood there looking up at the sky, and for the first time in my adult life, I talked to God, really talked. I said, if you're there, if you're real, I need to know. I need you to show me. Because I can't do this. I can't watch my son die. I can't hold my wife while she buries her child. I'm not strong enough. And if this is all there is, if we're just random accidents in an empty universe, then what's the point? What's the point of any of it? I wasn't being poetic. I was desperate, angry, broken. And then something happened that I cannot explain with logic or science or history. I've tried. For 35 years, I've tried to find another explanation. There isn't one. I felt a warmth, not physical exactly, but real. It started in my chest and moved outward. And then I heard a voice, not audible, not like someone speaking next to me, but clear, present, inside me and around me at the same time. The voice said, "Your son will live, and you will know that I am real." That's it, 10 words. But those 10 words changed everything. I fell to my knees in that parking lot. I was sobbing like a child. I don't know how long I stayed there. When I finally got up and went back inside, Virginia was awake. She looked at me and said, "Eugene, what happened to you?" She said my face looked different. Peaceful, she said, like something had lifted. I told her what I heard. She started crying. We held each other and we prayed together, really prayed, for the first time in our marriage. The next morning, the doctors came to us with news. William had stabilized overnight. The swelling in his brain had started to go down. They didn't understand it. One of them actually used the word miraculous, not as a medical term, just as a human being who couldn't explain what he was seeing. William woke up 4 days later. It took months of recovery, physical therapy, cognitive work. There were setbacks, days when he couldn't remember simple words, weeks when he had to relearn how to walk without losing his balance. But he recovered fully. The doctors said it shouldn't have happened. They said people with his injuries don't come back like that. But he did. Now I know what you might be thinking. Coincidence. The brain is complex. Medicine isn't perfect. Maybe the doctors were wrong about how bad it was. Maybe I was exhausted and emotional, and my mind created that voice. I've considered all of that. For years, I turned it over in my head. The skeptic in me didn't die overnight. But here's what I came to understand. It doesn't matter if I can prove it to you. I can't. I can only tell you what happened. I can only tell you that I was a man who didn't believe, who had decades of doubt stacked up like bricks, and in one moment those bricks came down, not because I decided to believe, because I experienced something I couldn't deny. And here's the thing about that experience. It didn't just save my son. It saved me. It saved my marriage. It changed how I lived the next 35 years of my life. I stopped going through the motions at church. I started actually listening, reading, asking questions. Not skeptical questions anymore, genuine ones. I wanted to understand this God who had spoken to me in a hospital parking lot. I wanted to know Jesus, not just know about him. Virginia and I grew closer than we'd ever been. There was no more wall between us when it came to faith. We prayed together every night. We served together at our parish. We taught Sunday school to teenagers, and I actually meant the words I was saying. We raised our daughter Linda with a different kind of presence than we'd had before. And William, he's 58 now, has 3 kids of his own. He doesn't remember the accident, but he knows the story. He knows what his mother and I experienced, and he has his own faith now, not because we forced it on him, because he saw what it did for us. I've seen too much now to ever go back to doubt. I've seen prayers answered in ways that logic can't touch. I've watched people transformed. I've held hands with dying friends who looked at me with peace in their eyes because they knew where they were going. You might be watching this and thinking, that's nice for him, but I need my own proof. And I understand that, I really do. I was you for 42 years. But let me tell you something. Proof isn't always going to come the way you expect. Sometimes it's not a voice in a parking lot. Sometimes it's quieter than that. A feeling that won't go away. a peace that doesn't make sense given your circumstances, a pull towards something you can't name but can't ignore. Don't dismiss those moments. Don't explain them away like I did for so long. Pay attention, because God is speaking all the time. We're just not always listening. I'm 77 years old. Virginia passed away 3 years ago, 54 years of marriage. She went peacefully, holding my hand, and her last words to me were, "I'll see you soon." She wasn't afraid, not even a little, and neither am I, because I know now. I know that what happened that night in Chicago wasn't coincidence or exhaustion or wishful thinking. It was Jesus reaching down to a broken man in a parking lot and saying, "I'm here. I've always been here, and I'm not going anywhere." If you've never had that kind of moment, I'm praying you will. If you've had doubts like I did, I understand, but don't let them steal the years from you like they stole from me. I spent 42 years standing on the outside of faith looking in. I could have had so many more years of what I have now. That's my only regret. Ask the questions, seek the answers, but stay open, stay listening, because when God speaks, you want to be ready to hear it. If this meant something to you, share it with someone who needs it. Leave a comment and tell me your story. Maybe you've had your own moment. Maybe you're still waiting for one. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. And if you have questions about faith, about doubt, about anything I've shared, put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. I don't know how much time I have left. None of us do. But I'm spending whatever I have left telling anyone who will listen that Jesus is real. He changed my life, and He can change yours too. Thank you for listening to an old man's story. It means more than you know.